I bought 4 tickets to take my 2 kids and my old man to a World Cup match right here in Atlanta, and on the morning of the game, my ex-wife and her new husband loaded those kids into a truck, backed out of the driveway, and left me locked inside their house. And not one of the 3 of them stopped to think for even 1 second about whose name all 4 of those tickets were sitting under. Now, before I get into all of it, I just want to say I'm really glad you're sitting here with me right now. It means more than you'd probably guess. Do me one little favor while you listen, would you? Put the name of your city down there in the comments, because I go through every single one of them. And I'll give you a shout out by name in the next video. And honestly, if you've got it in you today, a like and a subscribe are pretty much the whole reason a small channel like mine gets to keep doing this at all. So let me put you right in it, right where it happened. I'm standing in the finished basement of a house that isn't mine, and I hear the garage door go up over my head, and then a truck engine, and my stomach just drops, and I run to the stairs, and the door at the top won't open. It's bolted from the other side, and I get up on the arm of a couch and look out one of those little windows near the ceiling, and I see the back of a black Tahoe pulling out of the driveway, and I see my 10-year-old boy's face in the back window looking at the house, trying to figure out where his dad went, and they drive off with my kids to the World Cup match I paid for, and I'm banging on the glass and nobody can hear me. That's where I was. Now let me back up, because you got to understand what these tickets even were to us. They weren't just tickets. I'm from Atlanta, grew up out toward Marietta, and right now I live in Smyrna in a 2-bedroom. I rent off Spring Road that's honestly too small for 2 kids on the weekends, but it's got a grill and a little patch of yard, and my boy thinks it's the greatest place on earth, so what do I know? I've got 2 kids. Caleb, he's 10, and Hannah, she's 13, going on 35. I split with their mom, Vanessa, about 3 years ago. I'm not going to paint myself as some saint. Marriages fall apart for 100 reasons, and I own my half. But the short version is we split. It got ugly, and we ended up with one of those standard Georgia parenting plans where she's got the kids most of the time, and I get every other weekend, and a Wednesday night dinner that's over before it starts. Every other weekend. You blink, and it's Sunday, and you're driving them back. About a year and a half ago, Vanessa got remarried. Guy named Trent, sells commercial real estate, does well. They moved into this big new build-up in Roswell with a 2-story foyer and the lawn some company comes and sprays every Tuesday. And I tried with Trent, I really did, because you're supposed to for the kids. But Trent had this thing where he needed to be the guy. You know the type. The fun one. The one with the boat and the new bikes in the garage. Which fine, whatever. But there was always this little edge to it. Like every time he did something for my kids, he made sure I knew about it. Made sure it landed a little. And here's the part that matters most. My dad, my old man, Ray. Ray's 73, and he's the biggest soccer nut you will ever meet, which makes no sense when you know where he came from. Grew up dirt poor in South Georgia, worked at a carpet plant up in Dalton for 31 years, blew his knees out on a concrete floor. Not exactly a soccer town, Dalton, but back in 1994, when the World Cup was here in America the first time, my dad was glued to this little tube TV in our basement, the one with a coat hanger for an antenna, and I was a kid sitting on the floor next to him, and he'd point at the screen and go, "One day they'll bring it back here, and when they do, you and me, we're going." He never made it in 94. Couldn't afford it. 3 kids, a mortgage, and for 32 years that was just a thing he'd say. One day. So when they announced Mercedes-Benz Stadium was going to have World Cup matches in it, right here, 20 minutes down the connector from where my dad has lived his whole life, I knew what I had to do. The second those tickets went on sale, I was on the FIFA site at 6 in the morning, with 3 tabs open and my heart going like a hummingbird, and I got them. 4. Group stage match, right here at the Benz. One for me, one for Caleb, one for Hannah, one for my dad. They weren't cheap. I put a chunk on a card and picked up Saturday shifts for 2 months to cover it. But I did not care. I would have sold the truck. My dad, at 73, with his bad knees, was finally going to walk into a World Cup match with his grandkids. And the tickets, remember this part, the tickets were all digital. All 4 lived in my FIFA account, on my phone, in the app. No paper, no will call, just a code on your phone that turns into a little scan pattern at the gate, and it's tied to your account. All 4 of them tied to me. I told the kids, and Caleb almost passed out. My boy has slept in a Pulisic jersey since he was 7. He's got the little goals in the backyard, watches match replays on my old iPad, knows lineups for national teams he's never heard anybody say out loud correctly. When I told him he was going to a real World Cup match in his own city with his pop, he cried. 10 years old, crying in my kitchen. And at first, this is the part that still gets me. At first, Vanessa was fine with it. Better than fine. She texted me a thumbs up, and, that's really sweet of you to do that for your dad. I've still got the text. The kids were counting down on a paper chain Caleb made where he tore off a link every night. But somewhere in the last couple weeks before the match, something shifted, and I couldn't name it at the time. I just felt it. Trent started making these comments when I'd pick up the kids. Big soccer fan all of a sudden, huh? Must be nice to have the money for that, said with a smile so he could pretend it was a joke. And Vanessa got quiet about the whole thing, stopped mentioning it, and when Caleb brought it up, she'd changed the subject. And I noticed, but I told myself I was being paranoid. Told myself nobody's gonna mess with a 10-year-old's World Cup. Nobody's that petty. Yeah, I was wrong about that. So back to game day. Last week of June. And if you've been in Atlanta at the end of June, you know it's 90 degrees by 9 in the morning, with the kind of humidity where your shirt's stuck to your back before you make it to the car. Kickoff was in the afternoon, and the plan we'd all agreed on was I'd drive up to Roswell in the morning, grab the kids, and my dad would take Marta in from the North Line, and we'd meet up and go together. My dad had practiced the Marta route 4 times. Had it written on an index card in his shirt pocket. I've still got that index card, too. I got up there around 10, pulled into that big driveway buzzing, man. I had a cooler in the back with waters and a whole thing. I was so ready. And Vanessa comes to the door, being really nice. Too nice, looking back. Come in. The kids are just finishing getting ready. Come wait where it's cool. And I stepped right in. Trent's in the kitchen being buddy-buddy, which should have told me something, because Trent doesn't do buddy-buddy with me. And Vanessa goes, "Oh, before I forget, Caleb left his cleats in the bonus room downstairs. Can you run grab them? You know how he is about his cleats." And I didn't even think about it. I said, sure. Went down to the basement, this finished basement with the big sectional and the golf simulator Trent's so proud of, looking around for cleats that I know now were never down there. And that's when I heard the garage. You already know this part because I started there. The garage going up, the Tahoe, the deadbolt on the door at the top of the stairs, that would not turn. My boy's face in that back window. So let me tell you what happened inside my chest, standing there. You want to know what it feels like. It feels like your whole chest turns to ice. I sat down on that golf simulator floor for a second because my legs just went, and I'm trying to breathe, and I'm thinking about my dad on that MARTA train right now with his index card, so happy, about to find out his son and grandkids aren't coming. And I'm thinking about Caleb's face. And then something clicked. The tickets. I still had my phone in my pocket. I opened the FIFA app, and there they were. All 4 sitting in my account. On my phone, And I started laughing this crazy laugh, alone in a basement, because it hit me. They took my kids to a stadium they cannot get into. Those tickets don't live on Vanessa's phone. They don't live on Trent's phone. There's no paper anywhere. Every one of those 4 codes was tied to my account, and my account was in my pocket, in a basement, in Roswell, 30 miles from that stadium. They had the kids, and I had the only way through the gate, so I stopped panicking. Just like that, I got up, quit banging on windows like a crazy person, and actually looked around. And here's the dumb part. The door from the basement into the garage was unlocked the whole time. They bolted the door to the main floor and never thought about the garage. So I walked through the garage, hit the button, the big door went up, and I walked out into that Georgia heat, sweating through my shirt, holding 4 World Cup tickets on a phone. First thing I did was call my dad, and that was the hardest call, because he answered so happy. "Hey, I'm at the Dome Station. Walking up. This place is unbelievable. Where are y'all?" And I had to slow him down and tell him. And there was this long quiet. And then my dad, 73 years old, said, "So, what do you want to do, son?" And I said, "Pop, do me a favor. Get a Powerade, go sit in the shade by the stadium, and don't go anywhere. It's gonna be fine." And I got in my truck. Now, here's where I had a choice. And I want to be honest because I went back and forth. My first instinct, the animal one, was to floor it downtown, find them, and rip my kids out of there. But I'm doing the math on 400 South, and I'm realizing no. Let them get there. Let them stand at that gate and try to scan a ticket that does not exist. Because there's nothing I could say to Trent that would land as hard as that gate not opening. So I drove normal, and I waited. And sure enough, about 20 minutes later, my phone lights up. Vanessa. I let it ring a couple times because I'm petty. I'll admit it. Then I pick up, and she is sweet as pie. "Hey, so this is so weird. We're at the stadium, and the tickets aren't pulling up on my phone. I think there's like a glitch. Can you just send them over real quick? The kids are so excited." A glitch. She locked me in a basement, and now there's a glitch. And I went real calm. I said, "Well, there's no glitch, Vanessa. Those tickets are in my account. You can't transfer them and you can't scan them without me. You've been to enough of Caleb's stuff to know how these things work." And there was this pause, and I could hear the moment it landed on her that they'd driven all the way downtown in game day traffic and made a mistake they could not fix. And she goes, "Well, okay, so how do you, is there like a button?" And I said, "Put Caleb on the phone." And she wouldn't. Said he was in the bathroom. Which, sure, then Trent got on, and the buddy-buddy thing was gone, let me tell you. He goes, low and hard, "All right, enough games, send the tickets, the kids are standing out here in the heat and you're gonna ruin their whole day. Is that what you want? Your own kids miserable." And that right there almost got me, because he wasn't wrong that the kids were the ones out in the heat. My kids, not him. Caleb and Hannah on a hot sidewalk outside a stadium they can't get into. And for a second, I swear, my thumb was hovering over that transfer button because I could not stand the thought of Caleb's heart getting broken over this. I actually pulled over on the connector. Hazards on. Almost did it. Almost just handed those tickets over to make it stop for my kids. And then Trent said one more thing. "You always gotta make everything difficult. This is why she left you." And something in me went cold and quiet. I said, "Trent, you locked me in a basement. I've got my phone, and my phone's got the whole thing, and my kids are gonna know exactly what you did today." And I hung up. And I did not send the tickets, and I took a screenshot of the call log with the time on it, because by then I was already thinking a couple moves ahead. Here's the thing about my daughter Hannah, though. 13, sharp as a tack, misses nothing. And while all this is going on, my phone buzzes, and it's from her own number, and it says, "Dad, did they really lock you in the basement? Mom said you decided not to come." And my heart, man. I texted back, "Yeah, baby, they did. I'm on my way. I've got the tickets. I love you." And she sent, "I knew you wouldn't just not show up. Caleb is crying." And then a second later, "Trent told everyone at the gate you sold us fake tickets." Fake tickets. So now that's the story he's telling out loud, in front of my kids and a crowd, that I, the guy who spent 2 months of Saturdays paying for these, sold my own children fake tickets. And Hannah's standing right there hearing it, and Hannah is not stupid. So now I'm not driving careful anymore. Now I'm moving. I got downtown, and if you've tried to park near the bends on a match day, you know it's a nightmare. But I found my dad first, right where I told him to be, on a low wall in the shade near the Home Depot backyard, holding his little index card. And when he saw me, he stood up so fast for a guy with his knees, grabbed me and goes, "Where are my grandkids?" And I said, "Come on, Pop. Let's go get 'em." And we walked up toward the entrance together, and that's when I saw the whole scene. Trent was up at one of the gates, red in the face, arguing with a stadium worker, this young woman in a volunteer polo who clearly had zero power to fix his problem. And he's got his phone shoved in her face, showing her the empty app, raising his voice. And there's a little line of people behind him getting annoyed. Vanessa's off to the side looking like she wants the ground to open up. And Caleb, my Caleb, is sitting on the concrete against a barrier with his knees up and his face in his arms, in his Pulisic jersey, just wrecked. And Hannah's standing over him with her arms crossed, glaring at Trent's back. And I want to tell you, I did something dramatic. I didn't. I just walked up calm, my dad next to me, and Caleb looked up, and when he saw me, his whole face changed, and he scrambled up off that concrete and ran into me so hard he almost knocked me over, going, Dad, they said you weren't coming. They said the tickets were fake." And I just held on to him and said, "The tickets aren't fake, buddy. They were never fake. Watch." And I pulled out my phone, opened the app right there, held it up so everybody could see. 4 tickets, 4 real ones, section, row, seats, glowing on the screen. Trent turned and saw me, and his face did this flicker, because now the audience he'd been performing for could see there really were tickets. And they were on my phone, not his. And he goes, loud, so people hear, "Oh, great. Now you show up? Real nice. Making your kids wait around all day." And my dad, my 73-year-old father, stepped up, looked at Trent and said real quiet, "You locked my son in a basement." Just that. And it got dead quiet in that little cluster of people, because folks had been half listening, and now they're all putting it together. I didn't yell. I looked at Vanessa and said, "I'm taking Caleb, Hannah, and my dad in with me. That's who these 3 other tickets are for. That's who they were always for." And Vanessa opened her mouth and I said, "You can stand out here and think about your morning." And then Trent tried to physically get in front of the gate like he was going to block me. And the volunteer, the young woman he'd been yelling at for 20 minutes, keys her little radio. And 2 big stadium security guys come out of nowhere the way they do. And one of them goes, "Sir, I'm going to need you to step back from the gate," to Trent. And Trent's sputtering, No, that's my family." And the security guy looks at me, and I just held up my phone with the 4 tickets and said, "I've got the tickets for these 3, and me. We're good." And I scanned Caleb through first. You should have seen my boy's face when that gate light turned green and it beeped him in. Like Christmas. Like 10 Christmases. I scanned Hannah, and as she went through, she looked back at Trent and Vanessa standing there, and she didn't say anything mean. She's better than me. She just looked at them, and then held her eyes on her mom for a second longer. And something passed there that I think Vanessa's gonna remember for a long time. And then I scanned my dad, and picture this. My dad, 73, 32 years after he pointed at a coat hanger antenna and said one day, walking through that gate into a World Cup stadium with tears just running down his face, not even wiping them, and I scanned myself in last, and behind me Trent's still arguing with security about a ticket that does not and never did exist on his phone. We left them out there, and I'm not going to pretend some part of me didn't enjoy that, because I'm human. The match itself I'm not going to spend forever on, because honestly, a lot of it is a blur of noise and color, but I'll tell you what I remember. Caleb, standing on his seat the whole first half screaming until his voice was gone. My dad not even watching the game half the time, just looking around at the whole stadium, at all 70,000 people, at the roof, at the field, like he was trying to memorize it, like he still couldn't believe he was inside of it. At one point, he leaned over and said, "I told you they'd bring it back." And I had to look at the field for a second so my kids wouldn't see their dad lose it. I remember buying Caleb a $12 pretzel and a slushie the size of his head and not caring even a little bit. Hannah, cool Hannah, on her feet screaming with everybody when there was a goal, forgetting to be 13 for about 90 minutes. And somewhere in the second half, I felt something come off my shoulders that I'd been carrying for 3 years. This weight I didn't even fully know was there until it lifted. 3 years of feeling like the outsider dad, the every other weekend guy, the one Trent kept trying to make small, and sitting in that seat with my son screaming next to me and my dad crying happy tears and my daughter yelling at a referee she couldn't even see clearly. I just felt like, no, this is real. This is the real thing. You can't buy your way into this. But the story's not over, because you're probably wondering what happened after, with Vanessa and Trent, and here's where it actually mattered, because a locked door isn't just a mean thing somebody did. It's a thing that can go on a record. See, that whole time, without even really planning it, I'd been collecting stuff. And when I got home that night and the kids were finally asleep, worn out and happy, I went through my phone, and I had more than I realized. The call log with the times, a voice memo because I'd started recording the second call with Trent when he was threatening me and telling me I was ruining my kid's day. And on that recording, clear as anything, you can hear him basically admitting they left me at the house. Hannah's texts from her own phone, in her own words, saying they locked me in the basement and told her I decided not to come. And here's the kicker. The part Trent and Vanessa never thought about. Their own house. That fancy Roswell house with a security system. They had a doorbell camera and a camera over the garage, and it recorded, in beautiful high definition, the two of them loading my kids into that Tahoe and backing out at the exact same time. I've got a time-stamped video on my own phone of me pounding on a basement window. I didn't have their footage myself, obviously, but I knew it existed, and I knew my attorney could ask for it in a custody case, and I knew they knew it too. Because taking my kids like that, on my parenting time, and locking me in a room to do it, that's not just Trent being a jerk. In Georgia, that's a straight-up violation of a court-ordered parenting plan. That's the kind of thing a judge in family court does not love to hear about. So that Monday I called my attorney, the same one from the divorce, laid it all out, and she got real quiet and then said, "Send me everything, all of it. This is a modification." And that's exactly what we did. We filed to modify custody. Vanessa lawyered up and tried to spin it, tried to say it was all a big misunderstanding, that I'd left on my own. But then my attorney sent over the voice memo and Hannah's texts and requested their home security footage through the court. And all of a sudden, the misunderstanding story fell apart real fast. The court appointed a guardian ad litem, which is basically a person whose whole job is to figure out what's best for the kids and report back to the judge. And that person interviewed everybody, including the kids. And here's the thing about kids. Kids remember who locked their dad in a basement and who made them cry on a sidewalk and then told a crowd of strangers their dad sold them fake tickets. Hannah, 13, sat in that interview and told the truth about her whole day, plain and clear. It took months, custody stuff always does, but by the fall it was done. And I didn't get everything, that's not how it works, but I went from every other weekend to basically week on, week off, split down the middle, plus a chunk of the summer. And the order's got specific language in it now about neither parent interfering with the other's court-ordered time. Language that exists because of what they did that morning. Trent had to sit in a courtroom and be part of the reason his wife lost half her custody time. Let that sit with him. And the thing Trent wanted most, that's the part that really got him. Trent wanted to be the guy, the dad guy, the hero who took the kids to the World Cup and erased me a little more every weekend with the boat and the big house. And instead, the one big move he made, the one time he tried to just shove me out of the picture completely, it blew up in his face in front of a stadium full of people, and then in front of a judge, and now my kids look at him like the man who tried to lock their dad in a basement. He tried to replace me, and it did the opposite. Vanessa and I don't know. We're okay now. The way you have to be when you share kids. She apologized eventually, a real one, months later, and I think she genuinely knows she got dragged somewhere ugly by a guy who needed to win. I don't hate her. We were married a long time, and she's the mother of my kids, and I'm not going to carry that around forever. It's too heavy and it poisons the kids anyway. But you want to know my favorite part of this whole thing? It's not even the custody order, and that changed my whole life. It's smaller. A couple of weeks after the match, Caleb made me a new paper chain. Little strips of construction paper looped together, hanging in his room at my place. And I asked what it was counting down to, and he said, "Next World Cup, Dad. It's in a few years. You, me, and Pop." I already looked it up, and I had to go into the kitchen for a second. So here's what I've got for you. And I don't have some perfect, neat little lesson, because this was a messy, stupid, painful thing that never should have happened. But I'll tell you what I learned, if you can even call it that. You can't lock somebody out of their own kids' lives. People try. You can build the big house, and buy the bikes, and tell the story your way to a crowd on a sidewalk. And you can even lock the real thing in a basement for a morning. But it finds the door. Kids grow up and they remember who actually showed up. And no golf simulator in the world changes that. My dad waited 32 years to walk into a World Cup, and no deadbolt was going to take that morning from him. Some things you just don't get to steal. And they found that out the hard way, right there at the gate, with the whole world walking past. Thanks for staying with me all the way to the end of this one. If it hit you at all, do me that favor. Drop your city down below, and I'll see you in the next one.